Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Celebrating What Unites Us with Oldways and the Age Strong Commission. We're very happy to celebrate Nutrition Month. May is Nutrition Month, as well as Older Americans Month. And today we have a very special program with Oldways and Sarah Bear-Sennett. And we're going to learn about budget-friendly Mediterranean recipes. And I think this is very timely with very high rates of inflation, with the cost of gas going way up. It's been up for a while, and just the cost of food in general. And we know how many people are struggling with economic insecurity. And so we're very happy that we're able to get a class today, sort of outlining budget-friendly Mediterranean recipes. So not only healthy recipes, nutritious recipes, but they're also affordable. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm going to turn it over to the president of Oldways, Sarah Bear-Sennett. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you very much, Barbara, for having Oldways here to celebrate Mediterranean Diet Month as well. And it's perfect to talk about the Mediterranean diet as in budget-friendly, all-in-one one program, because the Mediterranean diet, although many people think of it as being expensive, it really isn't. It began, and as many traditional diets do, it began because it is the diet of peasants. Cucina povera is called in Italian. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the beginning of knowing about the Mediterranean diet, because of course people in the Mediterranean countries have been eating the Mediterranean diet for years and years and years. But it really only became known and became studied in a scientific nutrition way after World War II. The Rockefeller Brothers Foundation wanted to look at the effects in Crete of what happened after World War II. So they sent a team of people to Crete to learn what happened during World War II. And of course, it was devastated by bombing, and it was a very, very difficult situation. But they also discovered that people were really, really healthy, and they had been eating what is grown there, and what we think of as the Mediterranean diet. Wheat, olives, vegetables, and that interested a nutrition scientist from the University of Minnesota named Ancel Keys, who is really thought of as the father of the Mediterranean diet. And there's also a mother, his wife, Margaret, was an important part of his work too. And so they began studying the way that people ate in this part of the world and comparing it to diets in other countries. So it became the 7 country studies comparing, and it was all about heart health, the healthfulness of those in Crete and southern Italy as compared to people in northern countries like Finland and the United States. They also looked at Japan, which also had very good cardiovascular health. And so Ancel Keys began studying the Mediterranean diet. And that's what started all the work around the healthfulness of the Mediterranean diet. Oldways, the organization that I head, based in Boston, we're a nonprofit helping people live healthier, happier lives through cultural food traditions like the Mediterranean diet. And in 1993, we held a conference to bring scientists and food writers from all over the world, but particularly the Mediterranean and the US, our partners were the Harvard School of Public Health, the University of Athens, New York University, and we originally started to think about how to describe the Mediterranean diet, what were the characteristics of them. And the USDA had just come out with its first pyramid, and we decided to make a Mediterranean diet pyramid looking at the characteristics of the Mediterranean diet. And so the foods that are the main ingredients, all the plant foods, it really is a plant-based diet. Whole grains, whether it's pasta, bread, even rice, farro. There are all sorts of great Mediterranean grains, couscous, fruits, vegetables, beans. What brings them all together is olive oil. And while you might be concerned that olive oil is expensive, the way you use it, you don't need to use as much as maybe they use in Greece, but it's an important part of the Mediterranean diet. Fish and seafood is also a part. And in fact, scientists know that there are great health benefits, cardiovascular, brain development, prevention of some cancers, obesity, diabetes. The Mediterranean diet seems to be good for everything, but fish, having it twice a week, and then smaller amounts of meat and dairy. Fermented dairy, as in cheese, and yogurt is most prominent. And there are also moderate amounts of alcohol. And because this is the Mediterranean, it's wine. If you do drink, 1 glass for women, 2 for men. And most of all, there are so many great, delicious ways to put it all together. And so we have selected 4 recipes for you that are budget friendly. We can talk all about the ingredients. You will receive the recipes after this. And in addition to being budget friendly, they are easy and delicious. So Hannah, can you run the first video, please?
We're ready.
Hello and happy Mediterranean month. As Oldways celebrates the month of May and Mediterranean diet, we're going to focus on one of the great parts of the Mediterranean diet. It's affordable and it's really easy. We're going to do several dishes. This is the first one. It brings together tuna and beans and vegetables. All main ingredients as part of the Mediterranean diet. And when I get asked if the Mediterranean diet is too expensive, I often mention that canned beans, are one of the more affordable foods that you can find in the grocery store. And they're a great source of protein and fiber, and they are an integral part of the Mediterranean diet. So look for beans. And this dish brings together also tuna fish. The recommendation from our government and a part of the Mediterranean diet, the scientists who updated the Mediterranean diet pyramid in 2008 made fish and seafood more prominent because of the scientific studies that show eating fish twice a week is very healthy. So tuna can of tuna fish is a really affordable way to add fish to your diet. So let's get started. We're going to use olive oil, the healthy fat that's really at the foundation of the Mediterranean diet. I'm going to be putting 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And it doesn't matter where the olive oil is from, whether it's from California, Italy, Greece. Look for extra virgin olive oil, the healthiest olive oil. And we're going to start by heating the olive oil and adding onions. These are red onions sliced. And we will heat them. And what we're going to be adding are red peppers. They're sliced and into small pieces so they cook nice and quickly. And also the celery in the same size. So we're going to put the peppers and the celery in and cook this for a couple of minutes. I may finish this sooner than you will at home. This recipe is on the Oldways website. The colors are beautiful. A pot holder so I can show you how beautiful the colors are here. So we're going to cook this for a little while. And then we're going to add the beans. You can use any kind of beans you'd like. The recipe on our website has cannellini beans, but I've used black-eyed peas. What's important to look for low sodium or no salt. I couldn't find them for these, so I very carefully rinsed them. You should always rinse the beans, but with extra care since this was not low sodium. So here are the drained beans. I'm going to put them into our skillet. And this will take a little longer at home, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to move along. And next, I've taken a can of tuna fish and drained that as well. This came in extra virgin olive oil. You can use also tuna in water, whatever you prefer, whichever brand you prefer. Tuna fish goes in. It looks just beautiful too. And a little salt and pepper. And then at the very end, basil leaves or spinach, either one, slice them very thin and put them in until they are wilted. They will wilt in the heat. And they add color, but they also add great flavor. The basil smells amazing. And in comments on the Oldways website, it was suggested to add a little squeeze of lemon. Give some brightness. Lemon is always a great addition to Mediterranean cooking. And that's it. This is tuna with beans and vegetables, celery and peppers. And I calculated the cost of this based on my grocery list, and it came to $7 for this dish. With a family of 4, that means it's $1.35 per person. So a great dish, very delicious, colorful, and it's a perfect main dish. It's a complete meal: protein, carbohydrates, fiber, low in saturated fat, and low in calories as well. Continuing with our Mediterranean month, affordable and easy to prepare dishes. This dish is a pasta dish. It's orzo, which is small pastas, and it's got a Greek flavor. When we think of the Mediterranean, Greece is one of the places we think of. And this recipe with orzo also has tomatoes, feta, Kalamata olives. Kalamata is a town in the Peloponnese, which is south of Athens, and it's where a lot of olives and where a lot of olive oil is produced. This dish was created by an old friend of mine who I worked with many years ago, and it's published in our book, The Oldways Table. So here we go. It's a half a box of orzo. I actually found orzo that was produced in Greece, and after it's cooked and drained, put it into a serving bowl and add a little bit of olive oil, not too much, just enough to coat it, and stir. And then the rest of the dish is really assembly. It couldn't be easier. Cherry tomatoes, 1 pint, cut in half into the orzo, stir, and then the Kalamata olives. We actually are going to the Peloponnese next year with Aglaya Cremesi and a chef from Washington and Boston to learn about the cooking of the Peloponnese and learn about olive oil and olives. This is a cup of Kalamata olives cut in half. And then our favorite Greek cheese, feta cheese, and I like to look for the feta that comes from Greece or is made in an artisanal way. It's easy now to find it in grocery stores. There are European brands that have really great tasting feta. My friend Susan added dill to this, but since I just bought basil to go with the last dish that we made, I'm going to add some just torn basil to give it a little color, a little flavor, and also add salt and pepper. All of these dishes that we're talking about, affordable, simple, and easy, you can really add things, anything that you want. I'm changing the dill. You could change the cheese. You could put a different vegetable in. You could use a different pasta. But think of the base, and you can add things that you have. And here's how beautiful this dish looks, and it's delicious as well. And add a little salt and pepper. And add it to a bowl, and delicious. Mediterranean month, easy and affordable. And I found out, I calculated the cost per person. It's $2.20, $8.50 for 4 people. Very affordable, and enjoy. Hello, we're continuing on with Mediterranean month, easy, affordable recipes. This one is called Mix and Match Mediterranean Salad, and it illustrates why it is affordable and easy to do dishes like this. You can really mix and match anything you'd like. We've got a whole grain. I've chosen farro, which is a wheat, but you can choose anything, brown rice, any kind of pasta that you'd like. We like to think of whole grain pasta. And so you've got a whole grain as a base, along with beans. Remember, beans are incredibly healthy. They've protein, they've got fiber. You can buy canned beans, or you can use dried beans. Sometimes you have to remember to soak the dried beans the night before, but it's nice and easy to use canned beans. Once again, if you're using canned beans, be sure to rinse them carefully because to get rid of the excess sodium that's in the can. But canned beans are healthy and terrific. Just remember to rinse them. And then we're mixing in also canned tomatoes. These are diced tomatoes. You could get them fire roasted, however you want them, or you could use fresh tomatoes if you choose. And once again, we're using some Kalamata olives. We had them here, so I'd like to add them to this dish, but you can mix and match whatever you like. If you want to add some celery or some other kind of vegetable, the sky's the limit, whatever you feel like. So here, we're going to put the farro into the bowl, into the mixing bowl, and then add the beans. Add the tomatoes. It's just one 14-ounce can. There are plenty of buy organic or not organic. Mix this all together. Oh, the tomatoes smell great. And then the olives, the Kalamata olives, once again cut in half. You can buy them pitted already on the salad bar or in a jar. So here's what it looks like so far. And then to give it some additional flavor, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Remember, olive oil is the healthy fat of the Mediterranean diet. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, always a bright flavor. Some red wine vinegar, 1 tablespoon. A little bit of salt. A little pepper. I always, when I spill salt, over each shoulder. And then also we're going to add some dried oregano. But you could use whatever herb you like. And here it is, a mix and match salad. And it smells so good with the tomatoes and the oregano and the olives. So, bon appetit. Happy Mediterranean month. Oh, and one thing, this is a particularly affordable $5 for 4 people, so $1.25 per person. Bon appetit. Hello, we're going to close our discussion of Mediterranean affordable and easy meals by talking about one of the most affordable ingredients in the Mediterranean diet, and delicious. It's pasta. And there are so many reasons to enjoy pasta. It's part of the Mediterranean diet. Pasta does not make you fat. It's a myth that has been around, but it certainly does not make you fat. It's like a canvas. You can put all sorts of ingredients together, lots of healthy ingredients that will make a great pasta meal. And also, because of the way pasta is made, it's extruded through a die, and so that it is very tight and it doesn't produce a sugar spike. Bread, having the same ingredients of wheat, water, and salt, can have a spike, but pasta does not, and it helps you keep fuller for longer. The dish that we're going to make is not a traditional healthy pasta meal, but it's what do you do with leftover pasta? I think we all, we cook enough to make sure that our family and friends have the pasta that they need, and then you always have a little bit left over. What to do with it? I learned about this dish from our friends in Italy, Fausto and Mara Lucchetti. I was with them on the island of Pantelleria near Sicily, and we had leftover pasta, and Fausto made this incredible spaghetti tortilla. And so this is how we'll do it. All right, we're ready to make spaghetti tortillas. The ingredients are very simple. 1 onion and 1 garlic clove, a few drops of olive oil, 4 ounces of already cooked spaghetti, the leftover spaghetti. This is whole wheat spaghetti. 5 eggs that are beaten. And you can add vegetables or herbs, whatever you chose. I have some basil here. But if you have some leftover vegetables in the fridge, this is a great way to use them. So first we're going to put a little bit of olive oil in our heated pan and add the onions and the garlic. And you let them cook for maybe 3 minutes or so. Our onions and garlic are almost cooked, and while I'm waiting for them to finish, I wanted to let you know about the cost of this meal. I've totaled everything up, and it's about $4 for a family of 4, for 4 people. So $1 a serving, very affordable, healthy and delicious. I hope you'll find it is delicious. All right, so now we put the spaghetti into the pan. The spaghetti is, of course, already cooked. It's leftover spaghetti, or if you decide you love this, you can cook just 4 ounces of spaghetti. Oldways is also the Whole Grains Council, helping consumers learn about whole grains and find whole grains. And so whole grain pasta is a great way to learn about whole grains and enjoy the health benefits. So after we put the spaghetti into the pan, let me show you what it looks like. So the spaghetti is in the pan with the onions. And then I've beaten the eggs. And I'm also going to add the basil and just pour it right in. And spread the eggs around with the spaghetti. And then we let it sit for about 3 minutes. So it'll bubble a little. This is an incredibly easy dish. The big challenge is flipping it to the other side, and I've found that cutting it into 4 sections makes the flipping much, much easier. And you can imagine you can put all sorts of different vegetables or herbs, whatever you like. Maybe add a little salt and pepper too. Here is a look at the cooking pasta in the pan. As we're getting close to 3 minutes, depending of course on your stove, you want to start going around the outside to get it loosened. It's not unlike making an omelet and wanting to flip it. And so as I said, it's much easier if we cut it into 4 pieces. So pieces are much smaller. Still a little bit of an imperfect look, but very delicious. And then it won't take too much longer to cook the other side because it's been cooking all the way through. And you want to make sure that you don't burn it as well. You can serve it warm, but it's also just as delicious room temperature. You can certainly make this with other shapes of pasta if you have leftover pasta in any particular shape. Maybe not the big, thick one, round, long ones, but shorter cuts will work as well. Let's see how this other side looks. I'm not sure that my friends in Italy would approve of how it turned out, but it's delicious and it's healthy and it's a great way to use leftover pasta. Healthy, affordable, and delicious, and easy. Buon appetito. Happy Mediterranean month.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Those recipes looked great. Really yummy.
They are delicious, and they are very adaptable. You can put all sorts of different ingredients together, not necessarily the ones that we used.
Nice. And I see we have a lot of questions coming in the chat. Or a lot of people saying how delicious it looks. Someone had tuna, peas, and pasta last night for dinner, which is similar.
Already celebrating Mediterranean month.
Someone says they're so glad the recipes are so adaptable. Being a single person, they like to use up what's in the refrigerator and not always exactly what the recipe says.
And it's something we should all be doing.
Yeah.
Make sure those things don't go to the back of the fridge.
Right. And someone's asking about the orzo salad. Is that meant to be a side dish, a main dish? How would you serve it?
It could be either a main dish or a side dish. The friend who gave me the recipe is a vegetarian. So for her, it was probably a main dish. And, if you want to add things with protein, whether it's fish or meat or beans, there tofu, you can, really add anything to make it a complete, meal in a bowl or a plate.
Definitely. Someone is asking, is there a gluten-free version of orzo or a gluten-free type of pasta you would use in place of the orzo?
There are lots of gluten-free pastas, whether they're made from rice or there's lentils. There are all sorts of bean pastas. And, in terms of gluten-free, whole grain doesn't mean gluten-free. It's just wheat. So it's wheat and barley, but there are all sorts of different whole grains. And so a lot of these dishes, although they were made with the pasta, the two of them, you can substitute any whole grains. And the faros, of course, had gluten. So you really can substitute any grains. Brown rice is great. But yes, there are plenty of, better and better tasting gluten-free pastas.
Great. Speaking of grains, can you tell us more about some Mediterranean whole grains and sort of the role that that group of foods has in the Mediterranean diet?
Well, the Mediterranean, the diet, the base of the Mediterranean diet pyramid include whole grains. So, there are all sorts of great breads all over the Mediterranean, whether it's a flatbread in the eastern part of the Mediterranean, Turkey and Greece. Hannah and I were just in Turkey, and we had lahmacun, which is like a Turkish pizza. Couscous in Northern Africa is a whole grain. It's wheat, but certainly can be whole grain. Farro, frika, there's all sorts of different whole grains. and brown rice, in northern Italy. And in Spain, you think of paella, make that with brown rice. The possibilities are endless.
It's fun to explore and try new
And
things.
one of the things when we talk about pasta, and it's true of whole grains, that they are a canvas, that they can take on all sorts of different flavors. And so that with pasta, we like to think of it also as a way for kids to get under-consumed food. So it's to mix pasta with, and any whole grain, with vegetables, tomatoes, olive oil. They really become a complete meal on a plate. Add some beans, and it's affordable.
Yeah. And speaking of using pasta as a canvas, someone was wondering, can you add spinach or green peas to the spaghetti tortilla?
You could add anything to the spaghetti tortilla. Really, it's definitely a canvas.
Yeah.
You can truly add anything you like. The longer it cooks, the peas will cook and cook and cook. But I think if you put frozen peas in that spaghetti tortilla, the peas would be perfectly al dente by the time you finish cooking it.
Oh, that sounds really good. It's really nice for springtime too.
Asparagus, it could be a total leftover from your fridge going into the in with the eggs and the spaghetti.
It's a great idea.
And you can use any kind of different length pastas as well.
Someone is asking, can barley be cooked the same way that you prepared the farro?
Yes, definitely. It was cooked so that you can prepare it ahead of time and use barley as well.
We have a book called Whole Grains Around the World with a chart of all different kinds of whole grains and how to cook them. And you can also find information on wholegrainscouncil.org. I can put that link in the chat.
Great.
And someone
And
was
we do have the book Make Everyday Mediterranean, and Hannah is running a Facebook group during the month of May to celebrate Mediterranean Month.
I'll send a link to that as well. It's a private group you can join and follow along for 4 weeks of Mediterranean diet recipes. And there's tons of people who are really creative and post their ideas and answer questions. So it's a really fun group to be a part of. Someone's wondering if this is a CPEU webinar. This one is not, but we have a lot of CPEU webinars, including one on sustainability in May. So we'll include a link to that. You can also watch recordings if you're a dietitian looking for continuing education credit. So we'll provide that link.
And maybe you can send the link to register for those.
I will. Yeah, we have some exciting ones coming up.
The one on sustainability includes Walter Willett from the Harvard School of Public Health, who was also one of the co-director, co-leader of the Eat Lancet report, which brought scientists, climate scientists and nutrition scientists together, looking for the diet that will be sustainable and healthy for populations leading up to 2050. And reducing red meat and reducing sugar are two of the important recommendations. And really the diet that's suggested is very much like a Mediterranean diet. And it's Walter Willett and Sharon Palmer, who is the plant-powered dietitian, and then Oldways Director of Nutrition and Dietitian Kelly LeBlanc.
We have a question about pressure cookers. Do you ever use a pressure cooker to cook your whole grains?
I don't use a pressure cooker. I have my mother's old pressure cooker, but I've never used it. I should. But there's a cookbook author named Lorna Sass, who is the expert on pressure cookers. But definitely you could use a pressure cooker. I'm not giving you any advice about pressure cooker.
One thing that would be interesting to hear more about is olive oil, because it's such a cornerstone of Mediterranean cooking. Do you have any advice for how to pick out an olive oil or what to look for when you're buying it?
Well, one of the important things to look for when you buy olive oil is to look at the expiration date, because you don't want olive oil that is old, and you want it to be as fresh as possible, and so that the dates are on the bottle or jar or can or whatever you're purchasing. And I like to have an everyday olive oil that is maybe less expensive and maybe not quite as flavorful, and then to have one that's a little more expensive that I use less often, but it's to finish a dish. You know, for instance, if you've cooked fish or you're using for salad, something that is not being heated, I use an olive oil like that.
Awesome. Another fun
And
thing.
there's no right or wrong. You know, the olive oil that you love is the best olive oil. We all have different tastes, and so try different ones from different parts of the world, different parts of the Mediterranean. They're growing producing olive oil in more and more countries. Even places like Georgia and Texas have olive oil.
Very cool. Fun to learn about and try new things.
It is, and we have a video too about olive oil.
We do.
Website.
I would encourage everyone to look up Oldways on YouTube, visit our website because we have bi-weekly newsletters and Facebook groups and all kinds of things if you're interested in continuing to learn about the Mediterranean diet. We have a question. We got the pressure cooker. Someone's suggesting using oat groats or another gluten-free base for pasta dishes instead of pasta, if you haven't maybe found a gluten-free pasta that you like. Could you tell us a little bit more about the travel that you mentioned related to learning about the Mediterranean diet?
Oldways has a travel program called Oldways Culinarias, and we travel with a chef and work with local food experts. We just had one in Turkey and one in Portugal. With Ana Sortun from Oleana, Sofra and Sarma in Turkey, and with John da Silva from Chickadee in Portugal. Coming up in October, we have 2 to Italy, one to Umbria with Chef Kevin O'Donnell from Giusto in Newport, Rhode Island. And then later in the month in Naples and Amalfi with Michael Lombardi from SRV on Columbus Avenue. And we'll be learning about, we'll be doing cooking. The one in Naples will be doing a lot of hands-on cooking. You'll be learning directly from Michael how to make pizzas from Naples. We're going to be learning right in the middle of Naples. And also about cooking seafood while we're on the Amalfi Coast in Sorrento. And this travel program stemmed from the early Mediterranean diet work that we did, because in the early 90s, Americans were not familiar with olive oil. It's hard to remember that, 30 years ago, olive oil was more of an unusual ethnic product. But now it's, the grocery shelf is large. So we started bringing chefs and food writers and cookbook authors and scientists to different parts of the Mediterranean for them to learn about it. So chefs would come back and put olive oil and other dishes on their menus, start new kinds of restaurants. Cookbook authors wrote cookbooks, and food writers wrote articles in magazines and newspapers, just raising awareness about the Mediterranean diet. And these trips were so beloved that we started doing them for everyone. So they are really fun. People who love food are wonderful people. They, lots of fun and camaraderie. So please join us.
Awesome. They're lots and lots of fun. And my last question, unless anyone else has questions to put in the chat, you use basil and fresh herbs in a couple of the dishes. And can you tell us a little bit more about the role that herbs and spices play in the Mediterranean diet? Because it's pretty unique and interesting.
Herbs and spices give different identity you can have the same dish. For instance, think of tomatoes and bread. And in Greece, it might be oregano. And in Italy, it might be basil. And in Spain, it's just garlic. So that the dish becomes a very different dish. When we updated the Mediterranean diet pyramid in 2008, 15 years after it was first introduced, one of the changes that the scientists made, the update, was that they added herbs and spices explicitly because it gave regional identity to food. Also, they have health benefits, and they smell good too, and they taste great. And so I used basil in so many of them because I bought the basil and I had plenty of it and I needed to use it up. So rather than using exactly what the recipe called for, I continued to use the basil because I wanted to not have it. I didn't want to waste it.
Right. It's fun to see that so many of the budget-friendly tips are also sustainability tips and ways to,
It's
cut
true.
down on waste. So unless there are any last-minute questions, I think that brings our Q&A to a close. I'll give everyone a moment.
So happy Mediterranean month, everybody. Enjoy these recipes and be bold and adapt them to what you love and what's in your refrigerator.
And this is when I jump in and say, oh my goodness, what another wonderful, fantastic morning. Sarah, thank you so very much. I remember when we first met, it was almost 2 or 3 years ago, and we were doing an extraordinary program, first meeting at the park and then going to the kitchen. And you have sustained us and kept us together through these many months of COVID. And we thank you so very much.
Well, thank you for including us in your programming.
Well, you have given us a gift, and it's the gifts that we give one another that we share, that we just cherish. So, and so those of us joining us, if you're around next Wednesday and are downtown, join us for Tea and Tranquility at Armenian Heritage Park at 4 o'clock. And if you would love some of the best Armenian lahmacun in town, Eastern lahmacun in Belmont carries it baked fresh daily, as do other shops around. So Sarah, someday we're going to pick up that conversation about planning a culinary tour to Armenia.
We do want to go to Armenia.
We would love. But in the meantime, thank you all for joining us. Join us at the park. We'll be receiving notices about when our programs are held. But thank you to Oldways. Thank you, Hannah. A joy to work with. Age-friendly Boston. You are a phenomenal partner that we cherish. So enjoy today, everybody.
Thank you, you too.